There we go. Did you hear
All
her?
set. Yep.
Okay. So we can start now. Okay. Well, everybody knows this is my hybridizing program. Okay, this is the beginning, and this is the little guys that I used to work with a lot. And in the area that I grew up in, we grew a lot of these. There was a lot of hybridizers that worked with them. And so these are miniature dwarf bearded. This is my little buzz around. We have changed a little bit in the judge's handbook. We decided, some of us, there are what we call true miniature dwarfs, and then there's miniature dwarfs, because a lot of the miniature dwarfs are actually runted standard dwarfs. So the difference between a true one and a runted one, which is still an MDB because it's under 8 inches in height, is the foliage. And so we're looking for more narrow foliage. We don't want wide standard dwarf foliage on a little bitty plant. It looks out of proportion. But it's not going to stop anybody from getting awards or anything like that. Can anybody see my big cursor?
Yes.
Is it coming up on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. Somehow my cursor disappeared when I was recovering from surgery, and my computer man got it back, but he says, I don't know why it's huge like that. So I've got this huge cursor. Okay. This is actually a species X that I probably will introduce. It is only about 4 inches tall, and it's from some seed from a pumila in Armenia that I was given, and I crossed it with one of my iris, probably wee dragons, because wee dragons is half pumila, and came up with this little guy. Not a great picture of it, but it is a species. And this is one I'm still looking at. Whether I'm going to introduce, I don't know. And the same way with this. These are out of some standard dwarf breeding. You have to be very careful when you're breeding with standard dwarfs and trying to get them down to miniature, because you either get that real coarse foliage, or you get ones that one year will be short like a miniature dwarf, and the next year it's going to be 12 inches tall and a standard dwarf. So you really have to test these little guys out. If you notice the black here, if people don't know what that is, that's drip tape. That's how we irrigate out here. A lot of us. We can lay it right next to the rhizome, and the water goes where it belongs. It's not wasted into the air with overhead watering. Okay, I have done a few standard dwarf bearded. That's the next size up. I'm not hybridizing with them anymore. I am more limited to space than I used to be, so I've had to give up crossing with those. I introduced this one. It's got a little smaller, more tailored flower than I like, but that's basically the color of it. It's the most incredible pink I've seen. And this was my flirty dancing. It's up at the top of the limit. It's more like 15 inches tall. This I introduced in 24, just shocking. And there's a good reason I called it that. Look at the beard on that thing. It's basically a light coral orange and has this really dark coral beard on it that's huge. This is maybe the last standard dwarf I will ever introduce. It just depends. This was coral chips, and it is bright, bright, bright in the garden. The reason I may not introduce anymore, I don't know if I have anything right now in my seedlings that I've kept in the standard dwarf class. I might have, since I was laid up for 2 months this summer. I really not sure what got transplanted and what didn't. But because of limited space, I'm not hybridizing with them anymore. But when I do my miniature crosses, sometimes I get a standard dwarf out of them that's really nice. So that's where these last two have come from. They're actually crosses I did for miniatures. Now, I'm not doing IBs anymore. So this year is going to be my last year of introducing IBs too, the intermediate bearded iris. Now, if you don't know, the standard dwarfs that I just showed you were a cross of those first ones I showed you, those miniature talls, a miniature dwarf bearded, and a tall bearded iris. You got standard dwarfs. Then they took the standard dwarfs and crossed them with tall beardeds and got these intermediate bearded iris. So that's where they originally came from in this class. And they bloom in between these intermediate. They bloom between the standard dwarfs and the tall beardeds. This will be one of my this year's introductions. I've got 3 I'm introducing this year, mainly because I need the space, so I don't want to hold any more back. I have plenty of stock. This is actually a luminata. It's out of a tall bearded luminata. And many times when you cross a standard with a tall bearded, they're sterile. This one, I don't believe, looking, I can see the anthers are full of pollen, so I think this is not, but I'm not crossing them anymore, so I can't tell you for sure, but I'm pretty sure this is not sterile. Originally they were sterile. A lot of them are not sterile now, so you can cross intermediates and intermediates, but I still like to cross standard dwarfs and tall beardeds because tall beardeds have some very unusual patterns and everything in them. Okay, this is Party Boss from this year. This is another intermediate. It's beautiful in a clump and it blooms its crazy head off. You get a lot of bloom stalks, but it never blooms out. It just increases fast enough. And this is Hijinks. It actually is a horned luminata IB. So I have been very fond of this one. And it's a sister to cousins. That's why I called them cousins. Okay, now we're going to talk about the miniature tall beardeds. Now, the miniature tall beardeds I've been working with for years and years now. They were originally discovered in Bluffton, Indiana, and that's where I was born. And the person that discovered them was Mary Williamson. Her father, Bruce Williamson, was a vice president of the American Iris Society back in the 20s. And he died before he became president of the American Iris Society. And his daughter took over the garden. Longfield Garden is what it was called. And in the garden, when her father had done some crosses, they came up with these, what they called rutted plants. And her father, Bruce, never introduced any of them because he didn't like them. They were too small and everything. But Mary looked at them and said, you know, I think these would be great for arrangements on a table. So that's why for years they were called table iris. And you might have heard those. But since they're from the Midwest, you very well didn't hear about them. So they were diploids at the time. And she introduced 5. And so when you see the Williamson white metal, Williamson was for Mary Williamson. So let's see. Oh, I should explain. Okay, there are 2 types of miniature tall beardeds now. There are tetraploids and there are diploids. The tetraploids will cross with your other border beardeds because most of them are tetraploids. You can cross them with a standard dwarf, you can cross them with an IB, you can cross them with a tall bearded, but you really don't want to do that because miniature tall beardeds are supposed to be dainty. They have very thin stems with small flowers. Now this is a really close up, so it makes it look huge, but it's not. So this is a tetraploid. This will cross with tall beardeds. Now, paw prints, it's a diploid. And diploids are just a double set of chromosomes. They go back to the original tall bearded iris were diploids. The first tetraploid was actually also from Bruce Williamson. He had the first tetraploid, which was Lent A. Williamson was the name of it. It was named for his father. but that was the first tall bearded that was a tetraploid that was ever introduced. But these are from the original iris that Mary worked with, which were diploids. And they are limited more in color. This is another one. You'll see a lot of stippling, what we call it. See those stripes on the falls? A lot of them will have that pattern. Okay, this is my Maniac. It's a broken color and has great branching. This is also a diploid. Now, this is a tetraploid. This has more of a red cast to it. It's kind of a reddish to reddish brown. They're also, these tetraploids are also, the flowers are bigger, but they still have to be small enough to fit the class. And you have to watch the stems stay small on them. So it's really a challenge making sure they stay in class. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of MTBs introduced that are tetraploids that really aren't MTBs. They should more be IBs because they're much too coarse. So I'm very careful to make sure that they stay small. They tend to be taller than the diploids because they've got some of those genes from bigger iris. Okay, this was Loki, which is a strange color that is hard to photograph because sometimes it has some purple going up into the standards too. This is a color you can't get in the diploids. This is an orange neon glow, and it does glow in the garden. This is back to the diploids. This is something you don't see much in the tetraploids yet, are basically placata markings, but you get them a lot in the diploids. This is back to the tetraploids. And the reason I go back and forth is just kind of show you the difference between. They're both very accepted. It's not one is better than the other. A lot of people still want to see the diploids. Unfortunately, we just can't get the color in the tetraploids. And I get so enthused when I see the tetraploids because some of the colors we're getting are just incredible on it. This is one of my crosses that yielded this beautiful kind of Clarice, I think, with a tangerine beard. I'm working on a miniature tall bearded that is black with a orange or red beard. And every year I get a little closer, one way or the other. And you'll see it in a little bit here. Oh, back to Crazy. This is a Crazy Chaos was a cousin to Maniac. And it actually, you see on the falls, has more of a bluish cast to it with the stippling and broken pattern on it. This did very well at the convention this year, and it was runner-up to the most HM votes this year. And this is what a stalk looks like, that can look like of it. MTBs are great show plants. Back in the Midwest, almost always an MTB would win Queen of the Show over a tall bearded, because when you have a stalk that looks like that, it just puts a tall bearded to shame, I'm afraid. They're easier to transport if you have to go quite a ways to transport them. We used to have a man in our club that's all he grew were miniature tall beardeds to show. And he would drive 100 miles to show them. And he could transport them very easily because there's less to get ruffled up, and moving. Now, another distinction between the miniature tall beardeds, diploids, and tetraploids. Tetraploids bloom earlier than the diploids. The diploids can bloom anytime the tall beardeds bloom. The tetraploids start blooming before the tall beardeds bloom, and they bloom with the early tall beardeds. You always can find an exception because sometimes there is a miniature tall bearded diploid that will bloom with the tetraploids. There's always that. Okay, this is my wired crazy. I love the stippling markings you can get on the falls, and they can really jazz up a plant. This was last year's diploid, which was Marionberry. And if you don't know what a Marionberry is, it's a blackberry. Marionberries were discovered in the county just south of me. It's where mid-America is, and they were thornless, where your blackberries, you know, are not thornless. This is one of my favorite diploids I've had. This is Plum Bob Line, and guys will know what the plum bob is. And the line is that little belly band it has. First time this thing bloomed, I was like, wow, it is extremely bright, and I love this little guy. But this is a diploid. Okay, this was another diploid that has broken colors. Most of the broken color is in the falls and not in the standards. And this is a placata, plus it has veining in it. And most of the time they're in the blue range. And this was more in the plum range. And this is another diploid. This is Happy Kitty. This was a tetraploid I introduced that I really liked. I have this thing for pink and purple, you'll find, that I've done a lot of breeding with. And so this is Happy Kitty. This is a seedling. It's a tetraploid, but it looks like a diploid. That's been kind of my goal, make tetraploids look like diploids and diploids look more like tetraploids, because a lot of tetraploids are way too narrow, the falls. And this one has kind of an unusual shape. It's rounded off at the bottom so much. I haven't decided if I'm going to introduce it yet or not. But it makes a nice clump. This is one from the first day I saw it. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's ruffled, and you got to be careful with the MTBs. You don't want too many ruffles. But this thing is blazing red. So I really like it. So it'll be next year's Tet introduction, Scarlet Flame. This is a sister to Scarlet Flame. Notice it doesn't have all the ruffles, but it's got a very unusual pink color. It's kind of a pink and coral blend. This is Calico Jack. This will be next year's introduction. It reminded me a lot of Disco Ball, which all of these, most that I've showed you so far, have come out of Disco Ball. It was one I almost didn't introduce. It turned out to be the best breeder. I'm getting all sorts of pinks, reds, and oranges out of it. So I really liked it. This is Hard Cider, which is more of an orange with some kind of reddish accents to it. Another tetraploid. Okay, and this is some of my quest to get the black with a tangerine beard. Right now, I'm getting dark purples with tangerine beards. I'm also getting some really black, and it's this color with more of a yellow beard. That I'm still working with some pinks. This is one of the clearest pinks I've gotten. These are tetraploids because there's no pinks in diploids. This is one I really liked. It's orange and purple, basically. And the color combination, they're across the wheel from each other on the color wheel. So the orange and purple actually go together. But I want you to take a look. Look at the anthers on these tetraploids. That's another way you can tell a tetraploid from a diploid. You get much bigger anthers with a lot of big pollen on it. Okay, this is another one, an orange I'm looking at that has lightly ruffles on it. And I think I got an EC on this one. I can't remember. Okay, now this is a border bearded. Occasionally when you're doing tall beardeds and you're mixing some other things in it, you get some shorter guys. And I do a lot with horned space age things. and this was my next up. I kept moving at different places in the garden. Are you going to grow up? Are you going to grow up? Because I like the flower and everything. And it went, nope, I'm never going to grow up. So it's a border bearded. And this was last year's border bearded introduction. As you notice, it's kind of a light coral and purple. I'm kind of in that pink and purple mode, but it has a nice flounce to it. Now the rest of these are all going to be tall bearded. This was my hobnobbing, which was a sister to All Rise. All Rise was a little shorter. The flowers were perfect. The year before I introduced this, it was right on the end of a row, and I couldn't believe it. It had 16 buds. Every flower looked like this. And that's what space age iris should do. So it is such a good performer. But notice it's pink and purple. Okay, this was my Gabby Gal. I always liked this because I like the veining. And I'm like, how did you describe this? I guess it's purple with pink veining, but some people may look at the other way, you know. So it's like a zebra, but it also is horned. And here was a stalk of it, which I thought was very lovely and showing off its horns. But it's different. And this was Space Force. Now, the interesting thing on Space Force, and the reason I named it that, it's tall and it has a stalk to die for. The flounces on it, the top side matched the standards. The underneath side, which you can see there, matched the falls, which I thought was kind of different. This also got to be in the legacy book that Presby Gardens put out. A professional, world-renowned professional photographer came in and they allowed him to take pictures. And this is like a centerfold in the book. So he used this one in the book. There were 40 iris. Some of them were historic, some of them were modern. And living hybridizers, it was Keith Keppel, Paul Black, and myself that got in the book. This is a stalk. Look at this. See this stalk? This is a modified candelabra. It goes and goes and goes. And it wasn't unusual. It doesn't really show it here. But these big branches sometimes had a spur on them or a small branch. So this thing really branches. Okay, this is a seedling I'm still looking at. It's a different variation of pink and purple. It's more of a pink and magenta. This is another one. It is big and wide and overlapping. I'm still looking at. The reason I say I'm still looking at, because like I said, when I was laid up for 2 months this summer, I had no control over my husband moving my iris. And so I'm not sure everything got moved. This is one I've liked for years. It has this belly stripe that matches the standards. So it's one I believe will be introduced if I have enough stock for probably 27. This is another one. This is more of my kind of in between the pink and the purple and the my Ninja Warrior group. And here's Ninja Warrior. The funniest thing was when Bryce Williamson emailed me and he said, you know, I never thought this combination would work, but he said it sure does with this one. And Ninja has been a favorite of mine. In fact, it was picked by one of the California garden magazines in 16, excuse me, 16. It was a seedling at the 15 convention, but I'd already named it. And when the photographers from the magazine were in my garden, they just fell over themselves loving this. And since I already had a name on it, it was perfect for them to be able to feature it. And so they picked it as the Iris of the Year in 16. And out of it came Magical Night in 21 and Tyrannus, which is the Celtic god of thunder. I had to think a minute. The falls will be very black on this. Then when you cross it with Ninja Warrior with Haunted Hearts, you get a bigger flower with lots more ruffles and some interesting veining. This was my Dust to Midnight I introduced this year. And this is next year's Boss Man. You can see more ninjas coming out in it with the color of the standards. And this is one I really like. The falls are black and has tangerine beards, but it's got such an fusion of purple going up the standards. Okay, this is this year's introduction, Athena. It's out of Fruit Slices. It's a much better flower. It's more ruffled and bigger, but it's kind of an interesting flower. It's kind of like a toasted watermelon that falls on it. And this is my Classic Woman. If you've never seen it, this thing gets huge, the flowers on it. The worst part about it is if we have heavy rain and wind, the flowers are so big, it's going to catch a lot of that water. And I've been working with blue horns on pinks. And this was my picker upper. And out of this is this 4820H, which has more of a purple horn and makes nice stalks. And this is one I really like. It's more of a rose pink with almost a purple horn on it. So this is one I've been lining out to introduce. And then sometimes out of actually horn breeding, you get flops, which this is Final Bow that it really shocked me. It was a flatty, but there's not, I think it's the only pink flatty that I know of. And so this does very well in hot weather. You know, it takes heat for flatties most of the time to open. But the reason it was called Final Bow is because they wouldn't let me name it what I wanted to. Thomas said I couldn't name it Fat Lady Sings. So, because it's the last thing to bloom in the garden. And this is another pink that I'm looking at. That is another nice big pink. Some of them are more coral colored. This was Coral Jewel. I introduced in 23. And then this is a lighter coral peach, which is Clever Girl. And this is one I have no idea what to call it. Hopefully I still have it. It reminds me of lipstick. It is a bright, gaudy color. And I'm not sure what to call it. It's got some orange in it. It's got dark rose. Yeah, so I don't know. This is one of my favorites ever since the first year it bloomed, Gilded Chocolate. And Kathy Chilton actually named it. It got Best Seedling of Show, and Kathy was helping judge the show. And she walked over to me and she said, I've got a name for you, Lynda. And I used it because I thought it was an excellent name. It blooms very early. It's really, the sun is hitting this, so it looks a little redder. It's more of a chocolate color. And this one is, I'm finding, is very hard to photograph. When the sun hits this, it just blazes. It's not red, it is cinnamon. And I mean cinnamon, and it's bright. I've gotten an EC on this, excuse me, an EC at the show on this. And look at the stalks on this thing. And we transplant every year. And these are 1-year plants. You can see it's part of a row. And that row bloomed for 3 weeks on 1-year plants. So it really extends the bloom. But it stops everybody in the garden when they see it. They have to see what it is first, because it just stops you in your tracks, the brilliance of it. And this is one, it's a little hard to tell. Some pictures are better than others. I wish freckles hadn't been used because it looks like freckles on the fall here. It's broken veining. And so it comes out in little freckles on it. So it's a different. So I'm hopefully we'll be introducing this one. This is Ironic Twist. The one reason I introduced it this year is for somebody else to work with it. Keith Keppel says it's impossible to have a lighter stitched border being a placata. And I don't know what else to call this, but this is basically a very, very light plum to almost white stitching I have around the edge of it. So that's why I introduced it, because Keith said you couldn't do it. Okay, and this is Reach For It. It's a really hard color to photograph. It's more of blue in the center of the falls, and it goes out to more of a light violet with a blue horn. And this is Goddess of the Rainbow. I got Best Seedling at the show with this one. And when I got it, I was beating out Thomas Johnson, actually. So this is, I called it Goddess of the Rainbow because it has many different colors in it. And it always is just gorgeous in the garden. This is Sky Whispers. This is one that it reminds me a little about Gabby Gal because it has the veins in the falls and it's got the golden border, and you can even see on the styles, the little edges of the styles are gold also. This is for Emma. Now I have to explain this. This is the Emma Cook pattern. And Emma Cook, my husband used to work for her when he was a teenager. And when we married, she became my friend also. And she was a dear, sweet woman. That was the widow of Paul Cook, who was a very famous hybridizer. And until I read the biography of Bruce Williamson, I didn't realize that Paul worked for Bruce Williamson and hybridized. And Bruce originally introduced Paul's introductions. And he made some groundbreaking things. And Emma continued with the garden for several years after he passed away. And I got to know Emma. And the best thing she ever did was give me the cookie recipe she used to make for my husband when he would stay with her, because he would stay with her while he was helping. Because he didn't drive at that time. And so she would baking these cookies. And at night, he got to be in Paul Cook's library where he had all of his genetic notes and everything, because he was a self-taught geneticist. But because he was self-taught and he was a very humble man, he wouldn't let anybody see these, all his planned crosses and everything. And only two people that I know of in the iris world ever got to read any of them. One was my husband, the other one was B. Warburton. So at this present time, my husband's the only live iris person that's ever seen Paul Cook's notes. But since this is the Emma Cook pattern, I named it For Emma. Okay, this is one that I really like, this black. It's out of Black Hole, which is a very good iris, and Senor Jinx. And it's actually blacker than both of them. So I'm hoping to eventually introduce this one. And I'm not sure I still have this one. I love this one. That's the color it was. It's very red with a dark kind of pansy mark on it. So I'm hoping I still have this one. And I do work with placatas. This is my scattergram. I like bicolors. And so a lot of my placatas I work with have placata falls and solid standards. So this was scattergram. I almost didn't introduce it, but the problem was every time I went out in the garden, it just grabbed my attention. It's what I call a garden iris, because it wants you to come over and look at it when you see it in the garden, when you look across the garden. And to me, those are real true garden iris, because they will grab your attention. This was Monet painting. I named it that because it's very muted. The colors kind of blend together. And Monet was, in later life, was pretty much blind. So that's why all of his paintings were kind of muted, because he was painting what he was seeing, and what he was seeing was out of focus. So to me, this was kind of out of focus. So that's why it's Monet painting. And this was Time Bomb I introduced this year, another bicolor placata, very white in the falls. It's not carrying over the standard color into the falls. And it does grab you in the garden because of that white spot on that falls. Oops, and here's another picture of Goddess of the Rainbow. I boo-boo once in a while when I'm changing these programs around. Okay, this was Pistols at Dawn. And everybody that comes to the garden was always intrigued with it. The underside of the big horn is almost black, and the falls are very dark. They're not that red. And out of it, I've got this seedling, which is a little blacker. Still has the black underneath the horn and very clean standards. And this one, I hope I still have. It had a feathered horn, not horn, but kind of flounce. It's very cut. And the, if you can see it here, see how it's kind of cut on it. And it had a little veining on the edges too. So I really like that. And I like the little gold trimming here too. So hopefully this one's still around. This is another one that has a belly band. I like these little belly stripes on them. It just kind of makes the beard look longer. And placatas, I've worked with some placatas that have ground colors. Hot Wired had kind of an apricot ground to it. Perky Lass, the standards matched the ground color of the falls and is very lovely if you like pinks, and I do. This is a seedling I'm looking at, another bicolor, pink and purple. There I go with pink and purple again. And this one is pink when just has a nice border of violet around it. And this is another dark one. I don't know if I still have this one or not, but it has a nice pink ground to it. I'm working with more pink grounds than anything else. This one has more of a light apricot ground on the falls, another bicolor. And this one has more of a light orange ground on it. Now we're into my orange horns. This was candy corn treats, named because if you look at that beard, it looks like a piece of candy corn stuck on there. Va Va Voom had nice horns, and it's a softer orange. It's kind of a coral orange. And this was one I always loved. I mean, these are flounces that are so huge on this thing, but it had a fault. And the fault was the fact, because the flounces were so large, you can kind of see it back here, they never really flattened out enough. And it was hard to photograph. It was easier to photograph from above, but I didn't like the fact that it didn't flatten out. It's like the flounces were holding up the falls. And to me, that's a bad fault. So out it went. But this one I really like. And it's probably the orangest with a really tangerine beard on it that becomes a horn that I like very much. And it's got good ruffling. This is Riz. This is a really nice bright orange. I'm going to introduce this next year. And this, I actually got best seedling of the early show in Portland with this. I wish I would have kept the picture. It was on my phone of the stalk. I don't think, no, I didn't. I didn't have it on it. It had absolutely fabulous stalks to it. So everybody that saw this really liked it, but it's a nice bright orange with the stripes then of red on the falls. And this is one I'm definitely going to introduce. It's the color of ginger, and the falls are ginger plicata, kind of a ginger orange on it, which are different. And I really like this. It's a nice tall plant. And this is one I think will be introduced in 27. It's a bicolor plicata. You can see that the standards are one color of stitching and the falls are a different color, and they're very precise, the stitching on these, and I love this plant. Okay, and this is next year's introduction, Sandy Claus. And yes, I actually 2 years in a row have gotten ECs at our shows with this one. I never was crazy about the color, but I had this name Sandy Claus in the back of my head. And this just fits it perfect. It has these nice big pom-poms on it, and it's kind of a butter yellow with more of a yellow sandy, you can tell on the more of the halves. It's a little more matching the pom-pom. But everybody that sees it just goes, wow, they love it. Okay, and these are some of my seedlings I'm working with. Unfortunately, I couldn't download the one picture that shows it better. But these are the flounces here. They're huge, mammoth things. And I like looking down on it because it has a beautiful darker style arms. And this, I'm not sure I still have. It was like a bowl that flattened out with the beard coming up through it. So I'll have to see if this is still around. This is out of a sketchy character of David Tote. And I think this is one I've kept. It's a nice broken color with a nice big ruffled flounce. This is one that's You're a Mess of Paul Black's, and one of my seedlings that has very bright half markings here and nice broken color. This is my favorite one out of the cross. It's coming through more of my 6018 because it had a border, and these have borders to them with the broken and the inside. You can see this. So this is one that really is a nice one. And we're almost to the end here. I couldn't help but take a picture of this. If you didn't go to the Las Cruces convention, you didn't see the little Catholic chapel that we got to go in when we had lunch. And I was so taken to the stained glass windows with the iris in them. That just shows you how long ago people started noticing iris. And if you ever got to see this Better Homes and Garden that Kelly Norris had an article in, he never named it, but it was in the inside on the article and on the cover, right in the center. This is my blushing grapes. And this is a tragedy. It was in a part of the garden that got a little bit of rot. We don't normally get much rot, and it went bye-bye because I really love this. This was an Emma Cook pattern with this beautiful pom-pom on it. So that is all. So I'm going to stop sharing. I think it's back to you, Kevin.
Okay.
Did anybody have any questions?
So I have a question. With the smaller ones, you're talking about diploid versus tetraploid. How do you know without a genetics test, how do you just stare at one and say it's diploid or tetraploid?
Okay. The tetraploids bloom first. They're normally a little rounder, but look at the pollen. The pollen will show you. Because the anthers will be much larger on a tetraploid than a diploid. It's like And you actually can cross a diploid and a tetraploid sometimes and get a few seeds. And then out of that, one or two may actually germinate. So sometimes there are some diploids in the tetraploids. And because see, diploids normally won't cross with the tetraploids, and tetraploids won't cross with diploids because you don't have the same amount of chromosomes in them. But I've noticed that tetraploids bloom earliest, and the diploids bloom with more of the tall bearded, even some of the late tall beardeds, and they're more tailored normally. But like I said, a giveaway is looking at the pollen because the diploids will have very small anthers and much scarcer pollen on it.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else?
And she talks about, is she referring to the male?
Did you hear that, Linda?
No,
When you refer to out of, are you talking about the male or female?
When you say out of, are you talking from the male or the female?
out of.
Yeah, phrase out of.
When you're doing your crosses, you say this is out of this particular cultivar.
Oh, it doesn't make any difference
Correct.
because it could have been the male, it could have been the female, because I do them both ways. Yeah.
Do you notice any difference going both ways?
Normally the mother is a little more dominant. If you're crossing for horned, if the mother is horned, you have a really good chance of getting horned varieties. But I found that it seems like the mother is a little bit more dominant. So if there's a trait I really want in the mother of one plant, I try to use it as the pod parent.
Question is, what is a pom-pom?
Okay. It's on the end of the beard. With novelty iris, you get a horn, which is an extension of the beard, and has fuzzy. It's fuzzy like the beard. You have flounces, which is like little petaloids, and normally they're just a couple. Pom-poms are actually almost circular. They've got so many of these pieces of petaloids, basically. They form a cluster and they are more round. And you have to be very careful. It's sort of like a laced iris. Some of the laced iris used to be hard to open. They would stick together and everything. And there was one introduced out of France, I believe, that I had to wait 2 years to get. No, I'll take that back. No, I had to wait just long in the season because something happened to the crop here and they had to ship me one from France. It was called Pom Pom Party. And it would take 3 days to open. And when you're a hybridizer, you get a little impatient. But it seemed to have trouble opening. And I thought, well, maybe it's just our weather. But talking to Bailey Schiller in Australia, he had the same problem with it, that it just took forever to open. And I said, I used it on some things. Most of the seedlings I threw away. It was an awful parent. So I think there may be one I saved out of it. But other than that, I don't even grow it anymore because I was so discouraged. I can't wait 3 days for a flower to open. Any other questions?
How do you harvest the seeds?
Question is, how do you harvest the seeds?
How do I harvest them? I actually wait for them to start to crack open, that they dry down that much, and then I will harvest them. If we are transplanting and there is a stalk with a seed pod in it, we just cut it at the base, sometimes leave a little rhizome on it and stick it in the ground and just leave it in an area that is being watered so it's still getting some moisture. And I've seen it Mid-America, they'll cut them as soon as the pods start paling a little. They'll cut them and just leave them on the stalk for a while. It seems like they mature easy enough. And iris seed, if you don't get around to planting them, that's okay. I've had some I found in a closet one time in a shoebox that were almost 5 years old. And we planted them, and oh my gosh, we had a lot of seedlings out of them. Talking to Tammy Clark that posts for the Novelty Iris Society, she had some of Brad Casberick's seeds that were, I think, at least 12 years old that Shriners has planted and got about 80% germination on them. So if you harvest some seed and don't get around to planting them, don't throw them away. They're still good. Okay. Another question?
Okay, well, thanks again, Lynda. We'll let you go. We got a few items here to
Okay.
wrap up, but appreciate all your time and all the pretty flowers we got to see.
Okay. Bye.
Linda, maybe, bye,
Bye.
Linda. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, not too much left here. Raffle Bonnie,
Where's Lynda?
Oregon. She's and I'm not. Can be Oregon.
I'm having trouble getting out of here. Yeah.
Linda, maybe try stopping the record. Can you see a button where it's recording?
Oh, okay. Let's
Or
see.
down on the thing with the leave or the exit?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Okay, there we go.
All right. Take care.
All right.
You still get a ticket.
No,
if
the
you
biggest
show up
problem
late?
I'm having, oh, maybe I can assign and leave. It still has me. If I get out of here, I will close the meeting for everybody.
Okay, you can, I'll reclaim it. I got it. You can
Got
get
it?
out now. Yep.
Okay.
I do a little bit. I don't have anything.
Okay,
that I
leave came up
recall
now.
worthy of
All right, take care.
introducing,
Oh,
but
Linda's gone.
Do they flower true to what the parents look like?
well, when you say true, when you say
Bye,
true,
Pat. See you on the 18th.
parents' influence
Okay,
in the
take care.
children, but
Okay,
not
thanks.
really a notion.
Bye-bye.
of true.
Bye.
They don't look exactly like their parents.
Like rhizomes.